Concerns that coalition airstrikes against ISIS in Syria could inadvertently help Syrian President Bashar al-Assad stay in power. Assad has been fighting ISIS in the bloody 3-year civilian war there in Syria, and some worry that hitting the terrorist army will remove a key enemy of the regime, letting the Syrian leader solidify power over the country. Lisa Daftari is a media journalist and a Fox News contributor. Okay, Lisa. So, in plain terms, I'd imagine that Assad is rejoicing now. Why?
Well, it seems as though there are so many different factions here, and part of the group that we are targeting are also the enemies of the Assad regime. So I've interviewed many Syrians in Raqqa this week, and it seems as though the rebels there, who have been dealing with this ISIS problem for a while, have been fighting on two different fronts, one against ISIS and the other against the Assad regime. So on the one hand, many of them are very supportive of these strikes because they think it will debilitate ISIS. But on the other hand, there's a lot of resentment, and they're saying, where was this coalition when we needed help against the Assad regime? And what they argue is that if this coalition, whether it's the U.S., the West, or the Arab nations, had stepped in previously to help them remove Assad, then there wouldn't be this vulnerability in Syria where ISIS would be able to grow. And obviously the counter argument to that is that once we remove a dictator, as we've seen in many episodes of the Arab Spring, that's what allows, the political vacuum, and then more jihadi groups can come in there.
And you're talking about these jihadis groups. So address, Lisa, for me, the relationship between ISIS and Khorasan, where most of the airstrikes were targeted towards. How will that relationship change after one is annihilated by these airstrikes?
Right. So we haven't heard of this Khorasan group. They are an al-Qaeda group that's transnational, meaning people from different countries have flooded to this area in order to fight, and to create this larger jihadi organization. Within this Khorasan group, you have the Nusra Front, which is an anti-Assad group. So while we are targeting Khorasan because we want to get rid of this al-Qaeda group, at the same time, we are also targeting this anti-Assad faction. So that's why you're seeing a lot of this, again, resentment and anger by the same rebels that we, the U.S., is counting on to train against ISIS. So there's a big entanglement here, and the people that we're relying on, we're not so sure that we can rely on them. Again, this is the problem that we knew we would encounter, and why the U.S., 365 years ago, we were talking about striking Syria, but for a different reason. We were going to go against Assad for using chemical weapons. Now, fast forward 1 year, we're counting on the same rebels, who we didn't help, to now train them to fight ISIS. So we're going to see some problems here and reshifting of these groups.
Well, Lisa, no doubt this metamorphosis of this monster, it's happening quickly. I mean, by some military reports, it could take a year, possibly more, to train the moderate civil rebels. And the question is, how does the U.S. act quickly enough and proceed without being irresponsible or without being strategic?
Right. So there has to be an understanding of the problem, which is what President Obama was criticized for along the way. And there has to be a short-term, middle-term, long-term. And training these rebels for the 1-year duration is not going to address the short-term problem. So for the short term, we have this coalition, we have the airstrikes. So many of the military experts here are saying that we're not going to be able to win this war from the air in the short term. So in the middle term, then we're going to go after their pockets. Obviously, ISIS, one of its huge benefits is its revenue and its ability to have all this money. So we go after the airfields, the oil fields, not allow them to have these, to get the ransom from the West, and to, again, increase their revenue that way. We go after their cyber capabilities, their ability to recruit, to radicalize. And then the long term, again, becomes disabling these groups on the ground and making sure that they don't reassemble.
And it's definitely an entanglement. I mean, I think you referenced that earlier. So once there's some sort of containment of the jihadists there, what does the aftermath mean for Assad?
Well, right now there's such an entanglement, as you said, that for Assad, he's sitting comfortably right now. He's protected by Iran, he's protected by Russia, and he's not worried much. But at the same time, you have these forces growing within his country. So you know what? He's very happy right now because he's having the West, this coalition, the Arab nations, the Sunnis, the Arab nations who joined the coalition, help in ridding his country of this cancer which he has been suffering. So whether or not this will stabilize the country for now from its jihadi elements, but going forward, we're not going to see these Syrians become pro-Assad overnight just because we're ridding the country of ISIS.
Lisa Daftari, thank you very much there in our Los Angeles bureau.